Hello everyone, my name is Laura Rizak and I am the Associate Rector at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm so glad to be with you today for some family faith formation and to talk with you a little bit about nativity scenes and how you might use a nativity in your family as part of the preparation for the coming of Christmas. If you've been at the 9 a.m. service, then you've seen how every week during Advent we've built that nativity, how we bring up the Holy Family and the shepherds piece by piece until finally on Christmas we will bring up the baby Jesus. It's wonderful to do that in the service, and it's also really cool to have one at your house that you can engage with, especially if you have children at home, to help them learn the story. Now, I know that in most of our homes, we will have some kind of Christmas decorations, and most of my decorations, I have to say, are not always explicitly about the Jesus story. Like I've got, you can sort of see a scarf right there. I've got a Rudolph that's hanging on my wall right here, and I've got some nutcrackers that my mom made. And of course the Christmas tree that's right behind me that's got all kinds of woodland creatures on it. And that's wonderful and festive and all part of the season. But it's also so nice, isn't it, to have some decorations that help us to remember, and if we have children in the home, to teach that story of Jesus's birth. So I'm going to use a nativity that I have to talk a little bit about some of the parts of the nativity scene, and then to give you some suggestions of how you could use it. So this nativity scene I'm going to use is my understanding is a replica of one that was at the Biltmore house. It was a gift to me from, I think she's a first or second cousin once removed. Y'all know how it is. Like, we have kin. We don't always know the exact relationship. It's a beautiful nativity scene. The figures of Joseph and the shepherds are not exactly clearly marked, so it might not be one I'd recommend for kids, but I will kind of talk through some of the pieces just using it so that you can think about how you might like to use your nativity scene. This scene also that I have is made out of porcelain. I don't necessarily recommend a porcelain one if you want the nativity to be something that your kids are going to play with, but there's some great wooden ones out there, some other kind of ones that are made of softer material that might be good if you want kids to be able to tell the story and actually play with the set. So nativity scenes will usually have an angel as part of them. So here's the angel that comes with mine. And the angel is often one of the first figures that we put on a nativity scene because angels are considered to be messengers. They announce good news from God. And in the Christmas story, we have a couple of times when angels show up. So at the very beginning, long before Jesus was born, right, when Jesus was just first being conceived, an angel came to the Mother Mary and told her, this wonderful thing is going to happen to you, a wonderful and great mystery. You're going to have a son, and the son is going to be not just like any other child, but a special child. So this angel we could think about as maybe being the angel Gabriel, which is the name of the angel that came to Mary. We could also think about this angel as maybe being an angel that came to the shepherds who were in the fields watching over their flocks. And many angels, came to the shepherds and said, you've got to go to Bethlehem. You've got to go into the town and seek out this child because a wonderful thing has happened. You should go and see. So an angel is a messenger from God, really important part of the nativity scene. Sometimes I know in ours in church, the angel is actually up above, like the barn or other stable kind of, stable as in like where cows and horses are, kind of structure. So sometimes we'll put that angel on top. For my nativity scene, I don't actually have a barn that mine go in. So I'm just going to kind of arrange them on this flat surface right here. All right, so we've got our angel. So we also need to have the Holy Family. So this can be the Mother Mary right here. And we'll call this the Father Joseph. Now, I told you in this nativity that it looks like they sort of merged Joseph and the shepherds together into one role, which if you're using this nativity as a teaching tool for children, I would recommend, my preference would be to get one where there is a Joseph figure and then shepherd figures. We spend a lot of time focusing on Mary in the Christian tradition. Our Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox brothers and sisters certainly spend a lot of time with Mary. She's very important in their life of faith, and in the Episcopal Church as well. She's a very important figure because she said yes to this angel messenger when the messenger said, something's going to happen to you from God. And she said, yes, I'm going to participate in that. Mary also sings a song that we remember and we still sing even today. You're going to hear it this Sunday in church, especially if you go to the 11 a.m. A really important song called the Magnificat, which is all about the turning of the world, about how God is lifting up the lowly and will cast down tyrants from their thrones. So she's an important figure because even though that certainly wasn't something that was happening right in front of her, right? She wasn't seeing tyrants being cast down. She was seeing tyrants still being very powerful, but she had that inner vision and she had that inner faith that one day the turning of the world would happen. Right, so Mary is really important. There she is. And then we're going to call this guy the Father Joseph for now. Now, Joseph is people often forget about Joseph because we spend so much time with Mary, but I think Joseph is such an important figure because even though we say, Jesus was the Son of God, he was also the adopted son of Joseph. Now, Joseph was the man that God entrusted God's son to. So he is, in the Roman Catholic tradition, he's the patron saint of fathers, because even though we don't think of him as being Jesus's blood father necessarily, he still raised Jesus to be a pretty incredible man. And at a time and a place and in a culture when Joseph could have abandoned Mary for being pregnant out of wedlock, he didn't. Joseph believed Mary and he stood by her and he protected her in a culture that otherwise would have had really serious consequences for her, even including death. So not something maybe you need to share all the details with small children, but it's important to have a Joseph figure in your nativity. Now, the reason I say that Joseph and the shepherds are kind of conflated here is not just because there's only one Joseph figure in my nativity, but he's also holding what looks like a shepherd's crook. I don't know if you can see that. There's this little shepherd's crook with a star hanging from it, right? So it sort of looks like he's kind of in a shepherdly role. Many nativities will have the separate shepherds, which again, I recommend, and maybe even some little sheep that followed the shepherds in. Let's move, look at those cute little sheep right there. Those cute. There we go. All right, so these, when you have your separate shepherds and your sheep, you can tell the story about the shepherds hearing that message from the angel and coming in to see Mary and Joseph and eventually the baby Jesus. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, there's a few things that are still missing from this nativity here, right? We've got the Holy Family, we've got the angel, we've got the shepherds, we've even got some sheep. Some of them, you might be thinking, well, number one, where's Jesus? Well, Jesus doesn't get put in until Christmas Day. And I do recommend that if you're going to set up a nativity at home, don't put Jesus in the nativity until December 25th or the 24th. You could do, if you're doing kind of a Christmas Eve thing as a family, that could be when you add baby Jesus in. I'll go ahead and put my little baby Jesus right there in his little manger. Okay. And then there's one other group of people that are still missing from this nativity, and it's the wise men, right? Now, most nativity sets that you'll see will come with wise men, and when people kind of set it up before Christmas, they'll plonk the wise men right into the nativity. And that's fine to do. I mean, it certainly looks beautiful, and a lot of times the wise men's outfits are really beautifully decorated. So that's great if you want to do that. It's I think it can be helpful to wait to put the wise men in, because the story is that the wise men didn't arrive right at Jesus's birth, that it took them a little bit to get there. And so they got there really at Epiphany, which is in January, on January 6th. That's when we recognize the arrival of the wise men. Now, let me say this. No thunderbolt is going to strike you if you put your baby Jesus in the nativity before Christmas, or if you put your wise men in the nativity before Christmas or on Christmas Day. That's fine. But again, if you're using this as a teaching tool with kids, you could maybe talk about the wise men are still on the journey to see Jesus. Thinking about faith with everyone of every age level as a journey rather than a destination that we arrive at, I think can be helpful on many levels. So one thing that might be fun is if you have your wise men, so here's one of their camels, here's another one of my little wise men. What could be fun is maybe put them around the house and have them every day get a little bit closer to the nativity scene. That could be kind of a fun thing to do for 12 days of Christmas and really illustrate this idea well, that, the wise men are on the way, but not quite arrived yet at Christmas Day. I mean, we do things like this all the time, right? For Christmas, we do Elf on a Shelf, many of us, right? People that put on Pinterest all the things to do with Elf on a Shelf, so creative. And I think that's wonderful. I'm all for being festive. But how cool it would be too to channel some of that creativity into helping tell this kind of story too, right? It could be kind of cool. So in my nativity, they clearly leaned into the wise men on this nativity, because we've got a couple camels here. I'm gonna kind of sit up. I'm gonna kind of sit up just a little bit so that you're not gonna be able to see me anymore, because I'm gonna have so many wise men here. Here's a wise man. Here's another little wise man. We'll put that one right there. And here's a wise man. Now, people might be wondering, why are there always three? We talk about three wise men, three kings. We three kings of Orient are. In scripture, there's actually, it never actually says three. It says wise men, or magi, from the east came. Tradition says that there are three because there were three gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So ever since then, there's been three wise men. Okay. So on Epiphany, or, before, however you would like to do it as your family, right? Once that happens, once that last day of Christmas happens, your whole nativity should then be assembled. You should have the baby Jesus and the Holy Family and the shepherds. You're going to have separate shepherds for yours, little sheep if you have them, the angel, and then all of the wise men and everything that they brought. Let me scooch that over there so you can see that more completely. There we go. Okay. So again, if you have a nativity, could be really wonderful to use this as a teaching tool for Christmas. And if you have one that's precious like this, that's easily breakable. If you have small kids, you might just want to maybe tell the story, every once a week, or, gradually as you assemble it. But see if you can get your kids maybe a softer nativity or a wooden one so that they can play with it, and encourage them to tell the story. Ask them to tell you the story, right? All of these moments are going to help our children and our families in general get more familiar with that absolute beautiful story of Jesus's birth, and connect the reason that we celebrate Christmas with all of our daily experience of the wonderful, joyful things that we do during this time of year. Be well, friends. Stay safe. Wear your mask. And I'll see you soon. I feel like I'm peering over my nativity. It's so funny looking. Be well, y'all. See you soon.